what is your claim to fame?
I'm the founder of Amazon.com.
It's easy to have ideas. It's very hard to turn an idea into a successful product
in your life and trying to make sure you minimize the number of regrets you have. To always be leaning into the future. If you're leaning away from the future is going to win every time.
Once a cleaner in McDonald's and now one of the world's richest men, this is a story of Jeff Bezos and how he has become one of the world's richest men to step foot on planet Earth.
How you doing?
Nice to meet you, Mr. Bezos.
What's your favorite book ever? You could recommend one.
Jeff was born in Albuquerque, New Mexico on the 12th of January 1964 under the name of Jeffrey Preston Georgeson before this was changed to Jeffrey Preston Bezos only 4 years later after his mum remarried the Cuban immigrant Mike Bezos.
How about the laugh?
It's something I've always had. No, it's unique in the family. I embarrass them at movies,
Jeff had grown up with very little around him, as his mum had given birth to him at only age 17 before she'd even finished high school.
My mom had me when she was 17 years old. She was a high school student in Albuquerque, New Mexico. You could ask her, but I'm pretty sure that wasn't cool in 1964 to be a pregnant mom in high school in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Jeff spent 3 months every year from age 4 to 16 working on his granddad's ranch.
He was incredibly self-reliant. You know, if you're in the middle of nowhere, in a rural area, you don't pick up the phone and call somebody when something breaks. You figure out how to fix it yourself. And so as a kid, I got to see him solve all these problems and be a real problem solver.
Rumour has it he was even castrating cattle here. Although this wasn't what made him a millionaire, this is where Jeff learned his independence and resilience.
But we learned a lot of things from watching him because he would take on major projects that he didn't really know how to do and then figure out how to do it.
On top of this, by age 16, Jeff was also working at McDonald's as a cleaner. He thanks his job for teaching him the power of automations and the power of focusing on one task at a time. He wasted no time, however, and moved on to starting his very first business while still in high school. Bezos developed the Dream Institute, a centre that promoted creative thinking in young students from grades 4 to 6. In elementary school, Jeff was said to have been in the gifted section and was supposedly a top student.
What kind of kid were you?
Well, I was a good student. I always worked really hard. I was nerdy.
You were nerdy.
I was nerdy. That hasn't changed, by the way.
As Jeff matured, he began to show interest in science and technology at his school and was frequently found experimenting with new projects in his garage by his family. To no surprise, Jeff was later accepted into Princeton University with the goal of a career in physics. However, he ended up switching courses to electrical engineering and computer science.
And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, that's the answer. And I said, listen, Yosanta, did you just do that in your head? And he said, no, that would be impossible. 3 years ago, I solved a very similar problem, and I was able to map this problem onto that problem, and then it was immediately obvious that the answer was cosine. And that was an important moment for me because that was the very moment when I realized I was never going to be a great theoretical physicist.
After graduating university in 1986 with degrees in electrical engineering and computer science, Jeff was offered many jobs. However, he ended up working in a financial tech startup under the name of Vital. Jeff worked here until he was 26, where he then joined the New York investment bank D.E. Shaw & Co. in 1990. At this job, Jeff excelled and found himself as the youngest senior vice president in the firm.
I went to my boss and said to him, you know, I'm going to go do this crazy thing, and I'm going to start this this company selling books online. And this is something that I had already been talking to him about in a sort of more general context. But then he said, let's go on a walk. And we went on a 2-hour walk in Central Park in New York City. He said, you know, this actually sounds like a really good idea to me. But it sounds like it would be a better idea for somebody who didn't already have a good job.
During his time at this firm, Jeff began blind dating, however his standards were anything but low. One of Jeff's criteria for the girls he met was to see whether they could help him escape a third world prison. Strange, right? Although he did not have great success with the blind dates, Jeff met a woman in 1992 who he would marry only 6 months later in 1993. The woman's name, Mackenzie Scott.
Guys, up top, up top!
With the huge advance in internet use, Jeff knew that this was an opportunity he could not miss. In 1994, he left his D.E. Shaw job and moved to Seattle to open a virtual bookstore. He ran his business out of his garage with a handful of employees and began developing software for a website. He named this business Amazon. Sound familiar?
So, Amazon started as a very small company. It was me and a few other people. I was driving all the packages to the post office myself in my 1987 Chevy Blazer.
Although to begin with, Amazon was only an online bookshop, it was truly ahead of its time. Amazon was open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It allowed people to post reviews on books and offer discounts personalised to people. It was 1998 when Jeff knew Amazon would exceed being just a bookshop. CDs were added to the website along with videos being added later on in the year. Other retailers, however, saw the success of Amazon and began their own online stores. Competition for Bezos was this.
So your question is, did I kind of anticipate what would happen over the last 22 years at Amazon? And the answer is God, no.
He knew to carry on growing Amazon, he would have to diversify. By 2005, Amazon was now selling all sorts of produce, including consumer electronics, clothing, and hardware. We can see here the transition from a basic online bookstore to an internet empire of produce. In 2007, Bezos brought back the original Amazon, but in a whole new fashion when introducing the Kindle.
So the Kindle continued to grow. The device faces increased competition from tablet computers such as the Apple iPad. Last week, Amazon announced its second quarter profit rose 45% from the same period last year, and its revenue grew 41%.
By just 2010, Jeff announced that he had sold more Kindles than they have ever sold hardcover books. Not to forget, in the same year of 2010, Amazon moved into the television and movie division. Amazon's net yearly sales was skyrocketing, from £510,000 a year in 1995 all the way to $233 billion in 2018. February 2021, Bezos would announce he was stepping down as CEO, however planned to remain at Amazon as an executive chairman with a comfortable net worth of $195 billion.
I'm serious.
Yeah, no, I'm serious too.
So what do you do with that amount of money? While still CEO, Jeff founded a space flight company in the 2000s under the name of Blue Origin. Blue Origin was set up with the vision of millions of people living and working in space for the benefit of our planet.
Entire ecosystems are collapsing.
On July 20th, 2021, the firm sent its first crewed mission into space, which funnily enough included Jeff himself and his brother Mark. The mission only lasted 10 minutes, however in this time he was able to cross the Kármán line, confirming he was able to reach space. Has Elon Musk been to space? I didn't think so.
See that, because those guys are, those guys are heroes of mine, so it's really tough.
Furthermore, in 2013, Jeff also bought the Washington Post for £250 million.
Personal funds, it's not an Amazon project.
Correct.
What are you doing?
Well, I didn't seek to buy the Washington Post. I've known Don Graham for many years.
He knew the company was not doing well, however after the Washington Post owner had convinced Jeff he could save it, Jeff had made it one of his life goals, stating, "When I'm 90, it's going to be one of those things I'm most proud of." There you have it. The story of how one of the world's richest men made it from castrating cattle to a net worth of just shy of $200 billion. Drop below in the comments your plan to $1 billion and how you're going to spend that fresh bread.